Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to this Wednesday call. And today we're going to talk about scams. We're going to talk a little bit about just general scams, and then we're going to go into talking about an animal Reiki scam that just happened to Nancy Crow, and Nancy's going to share her experience. But before we get into that, I kind of want to talk to you generally about some scams and how sophisticated they're getting and how anyone really is open and subject to this. No one is immune from these scams, sadly. And there's not a lot of protection. And with the way the government's being run right now, we're going to have even less protections. And the reason I say that, this isn't a political statement, it's just that some of the agencies that I had to reach out to aren't in existence or won't be in existence for long. So we're just going to talk about different ways, though, that you can try and protect yourself. So last year I talked about how my friend Mary, who is a physician's assistant, was scammed out of thankfully only $100,000, but she almost lost $400,000. And what happened was she got a call. First of all, there was something that came up on her computer that was like an alert. And then she got a call saying, hey, there's something wrong with your computer. And then it turned into, we found child pornography on your computer. And then it turned into, we're the FBI and all of these things. So the red flags there would be anytime, if you've clicked on any type of spam email, then it could attach some bots and some adware to your computer, which then can create this thing where, like, it used to be really popular. I haven't heard about it so much in the past, but this did happen to Mary, but this was over a year. But what will happen is you might get an error, your screen might go dark, and then you might get a call from Microsoft, right? Or you might get a call from, like Mary did. Oh, this is the FBI. We found child porn. No one is ever going to call you. So if you get a call, if something comes up on your computer and you get a call, hang up immediately, because that means that you have some adware and you just need to take your computer in and get it cleaned. They're really sophisticated. And what these scammers do is they focus on fear. So with Mary, they told her she had child porn on her computer, that they had some credit card charges that were traced back to her, and they were for child porn. So that's very scary. She's a physician's assistant. She's thinking, oh my God, I could lose my job. This isn't me. And so she was open to helping. Well, what they did was, she was a widow. And we don't know if they got into her email, because if you click on a spam link, if you click on something, it does put things in your computer where they can kind of monitor. Or if you're at an airport and you use their internet. That happened when I worked for a billionaire. They do investments all the time. So I'm at the family office and they have a financial department, and the financial department does investments all the time. And there was this one client, I'll call him like Mark Smith. So Mark Smith was a client that was doing a deal with a billionaire. And he came in the office and the CFO said, oh, hey, Mark, I just wired you 150 grand for that deal. And he's like, I didn't ask you for $150,000. And she goes, wait, what? And it was from him, but the Smith, like, last name, and that wasn't his last name, but it had like 2 H's at Gmail. So it was like M Smith at Gmail. But when you first see it, your eyes don't really catch that. You're just used to seeing emails all the time from him. And so she had wired this money. Well, since it was a billionaire and he could afford to lose 150,000, that's like finding a nickel or less. He thought it was fascinating. And then another email came in while they were all standing there saying, hey, we need another 200,000 for this deal. And because it was so easy to get that first 150, right? What had happened was they had gotten into his email. Now, they had gotten into his email. They couldn't get into his accounts, like his computer. You have to allow someone to do that. And I'll tell you what happened to me with that in a minute. But they can get into your email. And this is where it's really scary, because this one family, and I don't know if you saw this, it was an article last summer. These people were trying to, this was during COVID, they were trying to get a pool built. And what happened was they found this guy who was very eccentric. He was a really great pool builder, but he was very eccentric, and they found him to do their pool. And it was going to cost $35,000. And so there were some emails back and forth, and he doesn't do calls. He only did emails. It was a really weird situation, but they did things through email. And what ended up happening was scammers had gotten into their email and saw these emails back and forth. So the couple gets an email from this guy saying, hey, I need $35,000 to start your pool. So they sent it through PayPal. They did all the things. And then on the day that they were supposed to show up, they were like, hey, where are you? Oh, we're on our way. We're on our way. Well, of course, they never showed up. So they finally get a hold of the guy, but the money's by this time gone, because once you send it out, once you send your money out, there's no way to get it back. And they did that. And what ended up happening was they lost 35,000. And the guy's like, that wasn't me. But scammers had gotten into their email. So probably with Mary, she had clicked on a scam, and then what the scammers do, they get kind of a limited access to your computer. And I'm not a cybersecurity expert, so I don't know all the ins and outs, but I do know that they can attach bots. And when they do, they can get access to certain things. So don't ever share your password in email. Don't ever share your login to something on email, because when you do, there is a small chance, if there is a hacker on it, they're going to have that information. So you never want to make it easy for hackers to do this. So what could happen is, okay, so in Mary's case, the hackers, they do an alert on her computer. She thinks her computer's dying. She answers the phone. They're like, hey, blah, blah, blah. And because she's a widow, and they probably knew this from the emails going back and forth, right? They start to isolate her. They tell her, don't tell anyone about this. And she ends up taking 100,000 out of her retirement account and sending it in like boxes. And they tell her, when you go to the bank, tell them that you're investing in a business in China or something, right? Because why would you be sending cash? And the banks will try and stop you. The banks will say, look, this is a scam. Listen to them. You would be shocked at how many people don't listen to the banks when they say, this is a scam, don't do this. Her investment guy said, this is a scam, don't do this. But they had her convinced that she was working with the FBI, and that she was part of this big, like, what do you call them? Like a dragnet thing. Like they were trying to catch these real people who were doing this porn thing. So they kept her isolated, and they had her open up a Coinbase account. Thankfully, they did that, because once she transferred the money to Coinbase, it was 300,000. Coinbase, which is also, it's crypto, and they're so corrupt, they locked her out of her account, and she couldn't get access to this money, which was really good at the time, because the scammers also couldn't get a hold of it, because they wanted her to give them the passwords and all of this. So Diane said, here we go. My husband is an accountant, and he sees this all the time. It's so sad. And you can't get your money back unless, so what happened with Mary was she put 300,000 in crypto, but Coinbase wouldn't release it. Now, if you take money out of your retirement account, I think you have 60 days to put it back without penalties. So if Coinbase would have given her money on time, then she would have been able to avoid the IRS penalties, because not only are you going to get screwed by the scammers, you're also going to be screwed by the IRS, because they now took away the protections for consumers. Because it used to be, if you were a victim of fraud, you could write that fraudulent loss off, but you can't anymore. You have to fight with the IRS. So what ended up happening with Mary was Coinbase wouldn't release her money. They wouldn't release her money. And then she finally, I told her, look, Mary, I can help you, because she was so overwhelmed. She didn't know what to do. So I reached out to SEC, FINRA, I think it's CFNC, all of these financial government bodies, Better Business Bureau, any financial governing body you could think of. I reached out to them about this situation and about how Coinbase was holding Mary's money, and also that she was scammed. They care less about the scam, because they're like, well, you shouldn't have been scammed. But this Coinbase situation was a big deal. what ended up happening, the only governing body that was interested in the scam and in Coinbase, and the only one that was able to do anything and get Coinbase to release the money, was the state department, the state Justice Department. That was the only governing body. So I can tell you, contact, IC3. IC3 is the FBI's consumer protection program, and they're the ones that you report these things to, but they do nothing. IC3 did absolutely nothing. And now with the FBI being dismantled, we'll probably have even less protections. So if anything ever happens to you, immediately contact the Justice Department of your state and explain to them what happens. And it's good for you to do that because you need a record. So the reason I say that is because, so after Coinbase finally, after I think it was 6 months, releases her money because the state Justice Department contacted them and told them they had to, she gets the money back and she puts it back in her retirement account. But now there's the IRS. So now not only do you get scammed by scammers, if you aren't able to put your money back in your retirement account, let's say you take money out of your retirement account for this, then you will be penalized, and the penalties are steep. So what we had to do was I then had to help her fight with the IRS. So it was really important what impressed the IRS and what caused them to give her, to waive all the penalties. She actually paid the penalties and then they refunded her. But in order for them to waive all the penalties, one, she had to file and then pay, which she did. But they waived it because I submitted her diary. She wrote down really good notes about who she was talking to and when she was talking to. And then I sent them the notes that I had from all the governing bodies that we had contacted for help. So there was a paper trail about this. So if you do go get scammed, take notes, take screenshots, keep records of everything. You probably are not going to get your money back if you get scammed and you're sending cash to somebody, but you will at least be able to write it off, hopefully, or avoid fees by the IRS if you have a paper trail. Now, I'm not saying I don't work for the IRS, not saying they're for sure going to waive this, but you have a better chance. And the guy that we were working with, the IRS advocate, he said, your chances are so much higher of getting this waived because of the paper trail that you have. So when we're looking at scams, if you do get scammed, just make sure that you're documenting everything. You're going to go into fear mode. It is very scary to get scammed. You're going to go into a complete fear state. Even when it's happening, when they're doing that outreach to you, you're going to get fearful, right? So for me, this is how I almost got scammed by what I thought was PayPal. I get a message from PayPal that I just paid an invoice for $900 through my PayPal account to some company. And I'm like, oh my God. And there's a number. And I'm looking at the email, and it's in the morning though, so I'm tired. I'm looking at the email address looked legit, everything looked legit. So I call the number and they answer PayPal. And they're talking to me and they're like, what's your username? And I tell them my username and they go, oh yeah, we can see the invoice. And I'm like, okay, this is all legit. This is all legit. Yeah. And I said, yeah, it's around. Okay, well, let's help you figure that out. So then he goes, are you at your computer? And I said, yeah, I'm at my computer. Okay, I want you to go to this site. And he sent me to a site, and it's a legitimate site. It's a site that people use to access each other's computers. So if I'm a tech guy and you're my client and we're nowhere near each other, we used to do this with John Sawyer, our tech person. It's oh God, I'm at a loss for words today. It just allows him to come into my computer and see my computer and have like a copy of it on his, and then he can kind of guide me. So it's a legitimate site that the PayPal people sent me to, but I knew, yeah, Log Me In is one. Another one that John and I used together was a different one. It was like Pilot Viewer or something. And this was a totally different one too that they sent me to. But yeah, Log Me In is one of them. And so he started to get me to go in there, and I'm like, wait a second. And I could see, I'm looking at the site to make sure it's legitimate. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is a viewing site. And I said, no. And I hung up. What would have happened was if I would have gone through with that, done it, let him access it, he would have gotten onto my computer. And once he's in my computer, I'm screwed. Everything is open to him. So you never want to give anyone access to your computer except your tech guy. Never will anyone legitimate ever ask to get onto your computer. And that for me was the red flag, because I knew PayPal, there's no way. Now, what I should have done, and what I encourage all of you to do, is if you get any kind of invoice from a legitimate service that you use, like PayPal or your bank or something like that, go to your account. Go immediately to your account and look at your account. And if your account is fine, then you're fine. Like a big one, I don't see it as much anymore, but I used to see it a lot, was Amazon. You would get Amazon, you know, there's a problem with your Amazon account. This is happening with your Amazon account. Call us or use this link, right? Which is going to take you to a dummy Amazon account. So just go into your own account, make sure that everything looks right. If it looks right, it is right. Or you can call them from your legitimate site, go into the contact us and go on chat or do something like that. But don't ever give anyone access to your computer, because they might have limited access through email. And that's why, again, don't ever share anything personal, anything that's confidential through email. You always want to do it through the phone if you're talking to someone, or you do it in an encrypted way. And then Anne says, I got the fake, I got the fake PayPal one many times. Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, they're getting more sophisticated. So here's the issue. They're getting more and more sophisticated with the logos, with the way they speak. So a lot of these are foreign entities, right? They're corporations they're hacking corporations. There's like thousands of people that are in these businesses doing this thing. And what they don't do is they don't speak English well, but we're not used to, especially when we're talking customer service, we're used to companies outsourcing. So speaking to someone who English isn't their first language is not a red flag, right? But in emails, it used to be there would be a lot of misspellings, sentence structures were wrong. So it was very easy to go, oh yeah, this is a scam. With AI, it's kind of fixed that a lot. So we have to be really diligent looking at the sent email. Always look at where that email is coming from, because a legitimate site will have a legitimate email, but make sure that email is spelled correctly. Don't click on like links to shopping sites and things automatically, because sometimes there will be something spelled wrong. Like I remember I got this, this was last year sometime, like a Lowe's gift card thing. And I had just shopped at Lowe's. So I'm like, oh, and I went to go click on it and I'm reading it and Lowe's was spelled wrong. And that's an easy one to misspell because Lowe's is spelled kind of weird anyway. So, you know, you have to be really diligent, because once you click on that link, they can attach adware and different things to you. And so, let me see, I've got to go back here. So Kelly said, I've seen a bunch that say I have a parcel that can't be delivered. Yes, that is a big one. And you'll get texts now too that say it. And it's so funny. I'll get texts that say like USPS, which I use all the time. And they know that in the United States, we're using that all the time, that I have something that's stuck there. When you look at the phone number, it's like a foreign phone number. It's like a 6-3 area code, or I mean a 6-3 country code. So I know immediately, okay, that's spam. But you have to be really diligent, because we don't have any protections. There's no protections for us. We can't say to Verizon or T-Mobile or AT&T, oh, stop these calls from coming to us. They're like, we can't. You just have to be really diligent and never click on it. And then Rebecca said she got a fake UK government email today about her account with them. However, I don't live in the UK nor have an account with them, so deleted. Yes. And delete and mark as spam also. That's really important, to delete it and mark it as spam. And then Barbara says, never click on a link of any kind that you're sent in an email. Exactly. And the sad thing is that I sent a gift to my friend in Paris, and he was getting these texts from their version of UPS that they needed more information, and he was ignoring them because he thought they were spam. So we live in a really strange world, but you're better off not clicking on it. And then also look at the phone number, call the phone number. You can call the phone number. There's nothing wrong with that. And just see if it is a scam. And then Trina said, I got an email today about a purchase I made, and it had a PDF and a link of my receipt to click on, which I never made any purchase. Yes. So that's another thing. But see, it's like they're throwing spaghetti at the wall. Somebody will have made a purchase and they will go ahead and click on that. And you never want to click on it. That is like the biggest advice I can give to you. Don't click on links. And let's see, Barbara says the same goes for text messages. Yeah. And text messages are, like I remember I got one from AT&T. This is like 3 years ago, and it was for some free AirPods. But then when I started filling it out, it was like you had to put in your credit card information for the shipping. And I was like, no, I know this is fake. So you just have to be careful about deals that you get too that might seem legitimate, and you go and you're going to put your credit card information in. And once you put your credit card information in, they have it. And then Nancy says, there are also fake texts saying that you have toll road charges. Yeah. I get those because I have an 805 and there is a toll close to there. I get those a lot and never click on those. They're never going to text you anyway. That the governing body that do the tolls, they aren't going to text you. And then Rebecca said the police here in Gibraltar post regularly on social media about the latest scams going around. Oh, that's good. And that's probably something that your local police does as well. And then Kelly says, I also recently got a bunch of text messages about my Toll Plaza transponder account being overdrawn after I traveled out of the state. And I knew that wasn't correct because I have auto replenish, and none of the texts were from my state system. Exactly. So that's really good, Kelly, that you clued in on that, right? We have to be our sleuth. It's really our own sleuth. It's really sad that we live in this time. It's only going to get worse. That's why we have to be really diligent about this. Also, my cell phone company calling me about a new promo, but it's a scam. It even says the name of the company on the call display, but when it's actually the company, it will say communications after the name of the company. Yeah, you have to be so careful. And then Barbara said a phone number is sent to you is suspicious. Calling the supplied number will connect you with the scammers. Yeah, it will connect you with the scammers, but it's just your phone. They have your number, they're calling you. Although maybe they don't have your number. I mean, it's probably good that you don't call back. And then Anne says, I wonder about reporting them of phishing and blocking them. Yeah, you can block them, but it may trigger something like a link. I don't know. I've never delved into that. I just know that you can block, but they have rotating numbers that they use. So it doesn't really do any good. You can, in the United States, get on a no-call list. I don't know how good it is anymore. I need to get back on that because I've been getting an awful lot of robocalls lately. And then Joy said, here in the UK, fraud is the biggest business. Programs abound on how to be careful, but there are times when in a split second, we are vulnerable. Absolutely, 100%. And that's something that we have to be really diligent about. So I just wanted to kind of tell you generally, like, here's some red flags to look for yourself personally. But I'm going to turn it over to Nancy Crow, and we're going to talk about what she experienced and what's happening in the animal business world, or any probably business world, and what you really need to be careful of. And there are a lot of red flags in the communication, but when you're trying to help animals, you can get lost in the desire to help and miss those red flags. So I don't know, Nancy, if you are unmuted, if you want to unmute.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
All right. I didn't want to assume. Long story short, I was emailed through my website by a lady who ended up booking 4 distant Reiki sessions for her dogs. And I said, that's fine. I'll send you the invoice by PayPal. Because she had said that she was not very tech savvy. I have another client who's not very tech savvy and prefers me to just send her a invoice through PayPal. And she said, no, I'm going to be paying by check. And I normally don't take checks, but there was enough lead time until the sessions that I could have canceled them if the check didn't arrive. So, I said, okay. And then an hour or two later, she tells me, well, we accidentally cut the check for 5,000 instead of 500. Please deposit the check in your bank, and once it clears, send me the balance. She said, well, we can't cut another check for a while. And so I said that wasn't going to work for me. And she said, oh no, please, once you get the check, I really need these sessions for my dogs. Please, once you get the check, deposit it and send me back the balance. And that's when I said, no, end of story.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was interesting too because you sent me the email copies, and it was interesting because she said, "Oh, I can't do another check." And then her assistant was going to handle something, and all of those, like anyone who is reaching out to you, even if they're a celebrity and they're reaching out to you, they're probably, if they're reaching out to you, they're going to handle the payment. They're not going to get an assistant
Yeah,
involved.
yeah, yeah.
And so that was, but also it was like, oh, the check was already cut and it's out there, but then you never received the check. So there was a bait and switch there that was going to be happening.
Yeah, and there were a number of red flags along the way. First being her, I mean, the very fact that she contacted through my website, she emailed me through my website and asked if I offered Animal Reiki services. Well, it said right there on the page that she emailed me from that I did, and she could have easily accessed that. So that was the first thing. And then paying by check when, I mean, I don't take checks, especially not from new clients. But anyway, and then, we accidentally cut the check for an amount way larger, and would you send me the balance? I mean, that was the big one. And then the way she kind of dug in when I said, no, that's not going to work for me.
And then tried to appeal to your better sense of feeling bad for her dogs. She wants her dogs to get service.
Mm-hmm.
You also pointed out in your email exchange with me that she booked a month out, which usually people who want Reiki for their dogs want it right away. And
yeah, that was unusual, but she said, I want it for their birthdays. And so I thought, whatever. I mean, I really, at several points in that interaction, I gave her the benefit of the doubt when I should have kind of used my doubt as a tool to say, okay, let's pause, take a breath, ask a few questions here.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just glad that I called a halt to it when I did. But, to even let that go as far, I mean, I've been a journalist for more than 30 years. I don't consider myself necessarily more intelligent or streetwise than anybody else, but I didn't just fall off the turnip truck either. So I thought, okay, if I almost fell for this, chances are somebody else might too.
Oh,
So that's why I kind of wanted to let everybody know that this is what's going on. And if they're scamming other practitioners, freelancers, and anybody else who doesn't have an attack secretary or a killer IT department or legal team or somebody like that, you're going to be out there
which again,
alone.
most people don't. And, they're targeting smaller businesses because they don't
Yeah.
have the resources. But but yeah, and and it's funny you say that you were a journalist, and there was a journalist. She was a financial journalist for the New York Magazine, and she
Oh,
got
yeah.
out of $50,000.
Oh, yeah. Not one of us is immune.
Mm-mm. Because
So,
once it starts happening, the wheels are in motion, and it's all, and there's a lot of psychological studies on this, like when you're invested in something, and even though if you're losing, you still won't let go of that investment because there's that belief that you're going to get it back. So sometimes we just kind of keep going with it, and we have to, like, exactly like you said, Nancy, your gut was telling you something's off,
mhm.
something's off. And sometimes we don't um listen to our gut because we think, oh, I'm just being paranoid, or oh, this woman's really nice, or I really want to help these dogs, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm normally better at trusting my gut, but for some reason that day I just was not. And, we all have days like that when we don't trust our gut and don't follow our better inclinations and listen to our better angels. So,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely, 100%. So that's really important for all of us to remember that, you know it's okay to trust. It's okay to say no. It's okay to trust and say, yeah, this isn't working out for me. Um, there's there's just so many things that we don't allow for ourselves because we're like, oh, I don't want to be mean, I don't want to be rude, or whatever that is. And then Anne said these scammers like to target the metaphysical community and empaths because we may be more open to help others. Absolutely. And we're more willing to, make concessions and listen to a story like she was trying to tell you, Nancy. But then very quickly she kind of started to lose it too, right? It's like, oh,
yeah. And, just recently, I just a few days ago replayed your session from last week about setting boundaries.
yeah,
And I thought, yeah, that's, there are maybe a couple things I'm going to have to add to my website about only accepting PayPal and only accepting payments in advance. But then again, the scammers aren't going to read that. So
no, but it's good to have those boundaries up
true,
anyway,
true. Yeah.
because it's a reminder to you as well, because you just,
Yeah.
like what you just said about boundaries and about you having your own boundaries. When we put up these policies on our site, we're reminding ourselves that's my boundary. But if we don't have those policies up, right, then we don't have a boundary. So I think that that's really good advice for those of you who do have a website and you are selling services, that you have a very clear policy on how you'll take payment. Because if you don't, if there's too much wiggle room, you open yourself up for these things. So not only is the policy there to help others, direct them on it's to help direct you, to remind you, no,
Yeah.
my policy, that's my boundary. I don't want to do it, right?
Hmm.
So, and thank you so much for sharing that, Nancy, because I know that it's hard. I mean, for Mary, she didn't want to share her story for a long time because she was embarrassed by it. But then she realized so many people were going through that and had been scammed. She felt like she couldn't stay silent about it. And she started to tell her story. And some people are like, oh, that's so stupid. How could you be caught in a scam? But when you're a widow, you're alone and you're being isolated by them, they're telling you not to tell anyone, because she would tell me I'm going through something and I can't talk about it. um you then have nothing, right? And your fear is so high you
Yeah.
can't even trust your instincts. So if anyone ever tells you don't tell anyone, it's just like little kids that get abused, right? Don't tell anyone, always tell somebody so that you can have peace of mind. And that's what happened to the financial reporter for the New York Magazine. She was told, don't tell anyone. You tell anyone, I think they were going to hurt her kids or her husband. She couldn't even tell her husband was like, what's wrong? And she wouldn't tell him, and she lost 50,000, and she'll never get it back. And it's really sad. So I'd love to open it up to anybody else who wants to share. I'll put it on gallery view so I can kind of see if you just want to unmute. But if you want to comment on this, and I know we have some new people who joined us, and you can just unmute if you have a statement or a question, and everybody's welcome. So please, if you have something to share, please share it, or you just have a question. We live in some really crazy times, and it's kind of scary about the government being dismantled, because like IC3, I'm sure they're not going to be around, but I didn't have any luck with IC3 anyway. I only had luck with the Department of Justice for Oregon, and thank God for them. So grateful, because they did get it back. But anyway, does anyone? Nobody wants to share? Because you know me, I'll just keep talking. But I would love to hear from any of you if you want to share about this.
Leah, I'd like to share something that
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Kathleen just shared in the earlier meeting that we got off of before this call. We were on the Shelter Animal Reiki Association and had our monthly meeting. And Kathleen was talking about how important it is to trust ourselves, right? So the animals will trust us. So when we trust ourselves, if something feels off, we can ask ourselves, okay, something's wrong here. Let's check in with my body. Like, just to stop for a second and see, to reassess the situation. So that was kind of like something that just popped into my head. If we sit for a second and have this feel in our bodies when someone asks us to do something, that doesn't feel right, or can I do this? Or, is it something that's in alignment with what is true for me? Then we can be more true to what's going on around us, right? So in these situations as well, right, it applies.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's, yeah, that was really great. So earlier we were just talking about, how our energy affects animals, and just really trusting ourselves, and how important that is when you trust yourself, because you're more confident. And when you're more confident, the animals are more confident around you. And really, that's such a great lesson and advice for us today. It's like, if you're feeling off and you're like, this doesn't feel right, take a moment, go for a walk. Even if you're on the phone, if you're on the phone with a legitimate company and you say, I'm sorry, this is really overwhelming for me right now. Notice this is how old I am. I'm doing old school telephone. And you can say to them, this is really overwhelming for me. I can't talk about this right now. Can I call you back? A legitimate company will say, yes, here's the number you call back. Someone who's trying to scam you will say, no. Now, and they'll try to pressure you because they want you in that fear state. So don't be afraid to speak your mind, speak your voice, and say, I need a moment. This is overwhelming. In fact, I was just talking to Scarlett, who many of you know, and she had a bank situation happen. Now, CBD has really strange banking laws. They're not like regular banking laws, like a regular business. So she had a problem with her bank, and it was costing her a lot of money, and she got really upset, and she was talking to the person. She said, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to go off the phone right now because I don't want to take my frustrations out on you. And I can't deal with this right now. And the woman was like, yes, of course. And here's who you call back. And that just reminds me that, a legitimate business, no matter what's happening, will say, yes, you can call back. But any illegitimate, any scammer business is going to say, no, stay on the phone, stay on the phone. They want to keep you engaged. They want to keep you working with them. And the sad thing too is that as we get older, and like I live alone, right? And I work from home, so I don't get a lot of personal interaction. You start to you can be more susceptible, I should say, to people being nice and talking to you on the phone. And, and they feed on that too. Scammers feed on that. If they know that you're alone, they're feeding on that. They're going to try and appeal to your better senses. So just be aware of these things. Just be aware of how, like Anne was saying, be aware of how you're feeling in your body. And, Nancy was saying, like her gut was telling her, don't. Our bodies will tell us this isn't right. And sometimes our bodies are like, oh, this isn't right. This isn't right. And there's nothing wrong. Like I remember went to a concert, and before the concert, I was like almost getting sick, like throwing up. I shouldn't go. And there was no reason for me not to go. And I don't even know what that was about. I was having some kind of anxiety attack. But so that kind of situation, it makes me like doubt my gut sometimes. But when it's truly not working with you, you can feel it not only in your gut, but like in your neck, you feel it in your heart. You feel that just like everything's coming inward, right? Nancy's nodding her head because I don't know if you want to unmute Nancy, but you know, I feel like my heart gets tight.
Well, I just, as you were saying all of that, remembered as I was answering this woman's email, for the first email from her that I answered, my hands were shaking. And I had no idea why. I was just like, what is going on here? Because I hadn't had too much caffeine, you know, nothing else like that was going on. And, you know, I typed something else or answered another email and my hands were fine.
Oh.
So I think maybe my gut or my instincts were trying to tell me something then too.
Right.
And if we're not sure, we can always just say this. My friend reminded me of this, like take a deep breath, count to 10 and just go. I remember people always asking me when my daughter was in school, when she was younger, like, oh, we need someone to volunteer. Would you want to do this? And, you know, as a people pleaser, we all are, right? At some point, to say yes, because we want to help, right? So I realized, no, I'm going to always say, if I'm not sure, or even if I am sure, but I will need more time, I'll get back with you on that. You're not saying yes, you're not saying no, but you are pausing. And that pause gives you time to go, okay, why was my body feeling this way? Let me reassess all the facts here. And then I can get back with someone, right? And if someone's trying to sell me a car or whatever, it's like, if they have a time constraint, you're going to miss out if you don't do it now, or if they want to keep you on the phone and it's urgent. That's a red flag right there. So even even if you don't know and you're doubting yourself, I'm going to have to get back with you on that. And like you said, Leah and Nancy, like if it's legitimate, they'll say, oh, of course. Yes, absolutely. If it's not, they'll push back. And then you know already that there's your answer right there. Right.
Well, just the tone that this woman or whoever the person was took with me, like, you know, I'll be paying by check. You know, she told me instead of asking me, do you take checks? So, you know, for someone to tell me and not ask me, that's, you know, even if it's not a scammer, it's not necessarily somebody that I'd want to work with.
Yeah, she's a new client for you. And really, you want to engage with me? Okay, I already know that's a no.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and the annoying thing is I know all this. I tell clients and other people this all the time, but, you know,
Well, and I think that's
didn't listen to my own advice.
You know, we all know better, right? We know.
Oh, yeah.
But then when you're in it, that's what I'm, you know, trying to convey here is when you're in it, it's a lot harder to then be like, oh yeah, this immediately, you know, sometimes it's easy, but like me with PayPal or with you with talking to this woman, you know, you get in it a little deeper than you want. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Why didn't I see this? Well, because you're either tired or you're distracted or, you know, you want to help, whatever that is. So we just have to be really careful because there's many points where you can eject.
Slow down.
Yeah.
You have nothing to lose by slowing down unless, you know, somebody's having an emergency, in which case they don't need you anyway. They need their vet.
Right, exactly. That's a really good point because when someone contacts you in an emergency, if they want something right now, it's like you need to go to your vet if it's that big of an emergency because nothing I can do right now is guaranteed. So go to a vet. And I think that's really good advice for everybody here, whether you're an animal communicator, if you do animal, you know, flower essences, you do animal Reiki, whatever your business is, that urgency, is there something that's actually even more effective that they should be doing as opposed to reaching out to you? Now, having said that, people are going to reach out to you as a last ditch effort. My animal's getting ready to pass. Would you give Reiki? And yes, you know, but even then, It's not like it needs it now, or this needs to happen now, or you need to take a check, or whatever that is. And I'm really glad you pointed that out too, Nancy. The verbiage, right? Like how she phrased it. I'm going to send you a check. And like you said, she didn't ask you. And sometimes when somebody's like that with us, we kind of regress a little. They're being authoritative, and so they're like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? It's like, they are. And then so Monica, thank you for coming. Monica has to leave. There's things that we have to, like what Anne was saying, slow down, because we're doing things sometimes automatically, or we're feeling things because, you know, we're people pleasers, whatever that is. But just slowing down and really tuning into your body. Like you said, your hands were like shaking as you were responding, because intuitively the energy of it hit you before, you know, what was the physicalness of it, right? And I think that's so important. And I'm so glad you shared your story on this, because that's our biggest indication something's wrong. Our body. And I don't know if your heart felt like that, but my heart, I can feel it here. It's almost like it's not something stuck in my throat, but it's something stuck in my heart. Like this is not feeling in alignment with me. You know?
Well, and there was just the feeling too of, I really don't want to respond to this person.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because, you know, she hadn't gotten the information off my website, and she was asking me about something that, and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'll answer. And then my hands are shaking. And then, you know, I wish I had slowed down and asked myself a few more questions and called a halt to things sooner than I did. At the very least, I could have saved myself some time.
Yeah.
But, you know, I learned from it. So what the heck?
Exactly. And that's the most important thing here. I mean, I think that that's our biggest takeaway, is that this is going to happen to us. And it's actually, it's a learning experience, and there's nothing wrong with us going through this, because it reminds us that we are susceptible to these kind of scams. But at the same time, it's not going to affect how we service people. In fact, it's going to make us more professional when we service people. So even if you're not, like, you know, Nancy, you have a beautiful website, and
thank you.
You offer services, but let's say you're just really casual and you're offering services like through Facebook, or just through word of mouth or something, or emails. I guess word of mouth, you would never go through a scam, but you know, if it's through email or whatever, you have an email list, just make protections for yourself. If somebody asks you to take a check and you don't normally take checks, just say that's only something I do with established clients, like you do, Nancy. There's always, I could, if I had to use PayPal and I didn't have a PayPal account, I could give money to my mom or my sister or a friend, and they would do it for me, right? There's always workarounds. So don't ever feel pressured, like, oh, they don't use PayPal and that's all I take. And so now if I want their business, I have to do what they want me to do. You don't. There's other ways. There's Venmo, there's Zelle. I mean, Venmo is very easy. It goes straight to your bank account. So there's workarounds. So don't, you know, again, going back to checking in with yourself, slowing down and saying, how do I really feel about this? And Sherry said, and you are teaching us through your experience. And so that is really helpful. Absolutely. Right. And that's what I love about this community. And for those of you who are new, who have joined us, thank you so much for joining us. But that's what this community is all about. It's about, that's why I ask for all of you to please talk, unmute and talk, because we learn from each other's experiences. We learn from each other's wisdom. Right. All of us have had different experiences, but we've gained some wisdom from that. And I know, Nancy, you've gained a lot of wisdom from this.
Well, when you mentioned Venmo, I started laughing, because one of the things she said to me when I asked if PayPal was really not an option, she said, well, I can't use any third-party apps because of a chargeback dispute.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, go back to scammer school if that's what you're going to tell people.
Right. Right. Yeah, because she did mention her business, And she mentioned that she's got a problem because of a chargeback. A chargeback does not stop you from doing business. A chargeback is just a deed.
Yeah. Well, and if she was trying to get me to let down my guard,
yeah,
it's just like, okay, is that what you're gonna tell me? All right.
yeah.
But maybe she's just starting out in the scam world.
No, but but again, Nancy, your spidey sense was up.
Yeah.
And some people, it might not be up. And they might go, oh, okay, I'll take a check. Oh, okay, you paid me too much. That's fine. I'll get the check. And then and I'll send you the rest back and I'll keep my $300. And I can't remember that scam. But there's a way that they scam that out of you. They send you something. I don't know if it's like a cashier's check, and the bank will cash it, but then there's a problem and then they freeze it on your end. And if it's a way that it's like clear for a moment and the banks can't stop it and it goes to them, but then it's actually not a valid transaction, and that whole 5,000 or whatever would have come out of your account.
Yeah, I called my banker and she told me how that worked. And
what did she say? I'd be really curious.
Oh, basically what you just did, that's a popular scam.
How do they get the bank so the bank cashes this cashier's check, but then how do they find out it's bad?
That I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah. Because there's something there, like it's good, like it's a cashier's check, they cash it, but then it's not. And then Karen said, one tricky thing that I find myself questioning anyone who emails me and wants to do anything out of the parameters that I offered, which made me so uncomfortable that I ended up pausing even doing anything at all. Yeah. And Karen, thank you for that honesty. I'm so sorry to hear that, because that's what happens, right? We get burned. Now, Nancy, of course, is going to continue to do business because she's been doing business a long time. And she kind of knows about this. But if you're just starting out and this happens to you, this can kind of derail you, because you then think, oh my gosh, I can't trust myself. I can't trust other people. But don't let that happen, because most of the people in this world are good. And the scammers have pretty obvious techniques. So if you read up on it, or, like just by listening to this call, we talked about many different ways, especially if you missed the beginning of the call, please listen, because I talked about some other ways that scammers try to get your attention. Don't worry, get out there, do your business. You're doing a great job, and have your boundaries. And I'm so excited. Taya Strom is going to be coming and talking to us on the 12th. And she's going to be talking to us all about how important boundaries are if you do any type of business. And like I was saying earlier to Nancy, when you have those policies on your site, you have your refund policy, and it's okay not to offer refunds. If you have a cancellation policy, all of these policies not only help the client, they help you. They help you to know that I have boundaries. And if they ask, oh, but won't you consider, refunding because of this or that? No, my policy is no refunds. It's very clear on my website. Or it was something I went over verbally with you very clearly, or it's something I put in our email with you very clearly. And just have it. Just have your little, your stock, what am I trying to, God, I cannot talk today. Just like your little thing, your little blurb that you say all the time. And you just automatically give it to them, right? You automatically.
Well, part of the verbiage on my website says, and it's not a pop-up because I hate pop-ups, but it's by arranging a session with me, you agree that, and it's the standard stuff like I cannot diagnose or treat medically. And then, that's where I would put that I only accept PayPal payments in advance and no refunds. That's where I would have that, where I do have my other policies.
Just making sure you have a policy, even if it's informal, have a policy, because it reminds you of your policy as well.
Yes.
Times like I teach, and I remember last year, one woman, she got stuck in a storm and couldn't come to class, and my classes are no refunds. Of course, I'm going to refund her money, right? She got stuck in a storm. Of course, there are times when you can break that, but you have your boundaries so that if and something else happens and somebody's like, oh yeah, you know, something came up, I can't make the class. Can I have my refund? No, you can't have a refund for that. So, and then Barbara said, would you suggest getting a business phone? I don't want to make my personal number public. Yeah, if you don't want to make your personal number public, but your personal number probably is public, I'm here to tell you. It's if you look up your phone number, you're probably going to find it because I can find anybody's who pretty much owns any number. It's pretty easy. But if for yourself you want to have a business phone to keep things separate, then yes, absolutely. You can even have a landline phone if you want for your business, because I did that before. Had a landline. I don't anymore. I just use my phone for everything, but I don't really get that many calls, so it's kind of different for me. But yeah, I think that I would get if you're getting business calls on your personal phone call, then get a business line. It's very easy to do. And it's great too if you have a business, an actual business. It's good too because all your registration documents, you know, your city license, whatever that is, they all have that number and not your personal number. So yeah, so that's about it for today. I will give you guys a recap. Yeah, thank you so much, Karen, for your support. And hopefully you learned something. Just remember, most people are honest. These scammers, they're pretty crafty, especially with AI, but you just have to be a little more diligent. You know, don't be like me and never wear your glasses, because that's how I got in trouble with the PayPal thing. That's not looking close enough. So, you know, wear glasses. But thank you everyone so much. Thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing and for being so honest. Thank you, Anne, for commenting and sharing your part too. And just thank you everyone for being here today. And don't forget, we're going to be gone. I'm traveling next Wednesday and the Wednesday after, but I'm going to be back with Taya Strong. And I'm so excited for you guys. You have to come. I promise you. You will absolutely love it. She is so amazing, and she's going to give you such great workable advice. And one thing I want to tell you about Taya is so freaking magical. Taya is not like, if you look at her Instagram, she's not huge or anything, but Taya is slammed busy. You have to wait months to get an animal communication session with Taya because she is very busy. And she was approached to write her book on animal communication. She didn't pitch a book. She didn't do anything. She was approached. So this woman, whatever she's doing, I'm telling you, she's doing it right. And no, she's not a bajillionaire or a millionaire, but she has a thriving business and she's very happy. And I know that she is a great role model for all of you. So yeah, thank you all so much. And I'll see you on the 12th. Yeah. Bye.